This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Listen to the sound of smugness. This is Wretched Radio. I will try to not be smug, but it's going to be difficult because I was right. That's it. What you're about to hear proves, just like the blind knife that finds a squirrel in the shed twice a day, I nailed this one. Don't know if you watch the Vody Balcom event, because that's what it is with Vody Balcom. It's an event. Vody can go to Zaxby's, and it's an event because he's a mountain of a man, and he was in studio, and we aired it on Facebook, and you watched it. Well, at least lots of people did. Tens and tens of people actually watched it and engaged with it and commented on it. And one of the things that we discussed, it was all a part of contemporary issues. Why? Not so that we could just sit and trash and bash our culture, but so that we could learn how to engage and ultimately get to the gospel. Yes, we can point out the hole in their worldview. In other words, what we can do is tell the pagan they have a God-shaped hole in their worldview that only the Bible can fill. There you go. Now, see? You can sort of use that abiblical phrase.
That's what you took away from it, then. Okay.
Pretty much right there. So you undermine their worldview. That's fine. But it's not enough to knock them off their feet. You want to lead them to the cross. You want to get them to the gospel. After all, isn't that what God is about? So I'm reading the Gospel of Luke last night in my, sweetheart, was it 62 hours of private quiet time last night? Yeah. My wife is in the office, and she brought Zaxby's. She loves me.
Yeah, we've lost him.
Or I get really crabby when I don't have Zaxby's. And I was reading the Gospel of Luke, and read Luke 10 through 20. You start to get into the passion. But I believe that Luke 10 through 20 is about one subject. This is what true Christianity looks like. This is what false Christianity looks like. And when you see stories that have the same thing back to back to back, it is because it's the author's desire to stress it. What did Jesus come to seek and to save? That which is lost. So he seeks after what? The lost coin, the lost sheep, the lost son. This is what God is about. He wants us to get to the gospel because that's what he is doing. Now, as part of the Vody Balcom presentation, which I think you can still see on our Facebook page, go to facebook.com/Wretched Network. One of the subjects we talked about was politics. And my contention, and clearly I was right about this because, well, Vody kind of agreed, and this little video clip from Campus Reform. This is from Western Washington University. There's a fellow on the campus who has a sign. He is holding up a sign about Donald Trump. A woman walks by the sign about Donald Trump, and this is her charming response. We took 30 seconds of that for you because who could endure any more than that? It went on for minutes. People tried to calm her down. She became more and more irate. Why does this prove me right?
Yeah.
My contention, and you need to figure out the balance on this because I don't think especially I, or anybody should put a muzzle on you telling you never talk about politics. But we need to be mindful in our current culture. It is so contentious regarding politics, specifically regarding our president. I would suggest we need to be wise about when and how we talk about our current president. Why? Because we want to get people to the cross. We want to preach the gospel. And if we're talking about a man who causes a woman to rather lose her mind. She's on the ground, by the way, banging her fist and screaming. then maybe if that's the response that Donald Trump elicits, we need to be wise about discussing him. Please, did you hear the caveat? I'm not saying that we should never talk about. I'm not saying we shouldn't be involved in politics. I'm not saying that we shouldn't vote. But I am saying that if our agenda is salvation, we better be careful about how we speak about Donald Trump. In what context? For what goal? What does it profit anybody if we win a convert to Donald Trump and the person loses their very soul? There is a higher agenda the Christian is about, and it's not Donald Trump. No disrespect intended. We want to get people to the gospel. Why? Because that is what God is about. And while you're reading Luke 10 through 20, let some of those words sink in. Let them probe you a bit. Jesus is talking about the difference between Mary and Martha. That you are the one who is seeking hard after God, recognizing there are chores to be done, but the more important thing is Jesus. And that is why the next 10 chapters... Well, hold on 1 second. Just to make the point here, let me grab my... Hold on, I need to... Oh, this thing is dusty. Don't use this in my 69 hours of quiet time every night. Listen to how Jesus relentlessly talks about the difference between a true and a false convert. He sends out the 70, prepares people for his coming. He ends up at Mary and Martha's. Mary seeks after Jesus and salvation. Martha does not. I believe that's the hinge in the Gospel of Luke. Now we see Jesus showing, here's the difference between somebody who is seeking the pearl, the wise thing, and somebody who is not. Very nice, doing very nice chores, hospitality around the house, but isn't a true convert. So what do we see starting in chapter 10? Parable of the Good Samaritan. What does that reveal? Here's the true, here's the false. The Jewish man who looked all religious passes by the man in need. The true convert has compassion and pity. Parable of the persistent friend. Who's the one who just keeps not? The true convert does. Christ, let's see, this is chapter 11. Woes on the Pharisees. You're a false convert. Woe to the lawyers in chapter 11. Chapter 12, Jesus warns about hypocrisy. My friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body and after that have no more that they can do. I'll show you whom you should fear. Fear him who after he is killed has power to cast into hell. Fear him. You don't? False convert. Chapter 12, the parable of the rich fool. It's in the context of somebody who is not actually a Christian. Don't be that guy. Parable of the faithful steward versus what? The unfaithful steward. Christ warns of the cost of discipleship in chapter 12. These are all supports of, are you sure you're in the kingdom? Are you sure that you are saved? Chapter 13, he teaches on repentance, true repentance. He does miracles to show this one has true faith. There's the parable of the mustard seed, the parable of the leaven, the way into the kingdom. This is chapter 13. Do you see what he's doing over and over and over again? This is what true Christianity looks like. And he goes on and on. The instruction on the Sabbath. You're tied up in laws, you're a false convert. Parable of the ambitious guest. He noted who chose the right places. He goes to the head of the table. I'm going to sit here. No. The humble person goes to the insignificant location. True and false convert. Parable of the great supper. Who's going to be there and who will not be there? Compel them to come in because these people reject it. Then he teaches on discipleship. Chapter 15, parable of the lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son. And it goes, we've just made it to chapter 15. I think we get the point. God stresses the difference between a true convert and a false convert. Why? Because he wants people to be saved, to examine themselves to see if they are in the faith. Why? Because God is about the gospel. And if we are going to be faithful servants, then we need to be about the gospel too. And that means if we talk about a subject that becomes a stumbling block to even get to the stumbling block of the gospel, then we are simply not being wise. Okay, I admit, while that certainly is anecdotal, I don't think she's the only one who goes ballistic when somebody says something good about Donald Trump. Am I saying we should only say bad things about Donald Trump? No, I'm not saying that. But I am saying, and Vody Baucom agreed. And let me tell you something. You disagree with me on this, you're disagreeing with Vody Baucom, and you do not want to do that because you know what he could cause you? Well, he could actually cause you to scream and have some pain because he's Vody Baucom. This is Wretched Radio. Send your emails to Tony.
Thanks for listening to the Wretched segment du jour. If you'd like more Wretched, you can listen to the most current stream for free at wretched.tv/listen, or you can become a club member and listen to our entire archive. Wretched, reaching the lost, equipping the saints, and strengthening the local church.